In our episodes, we discuss cases and topics that might be distressing or disturbing to some listeners. Listener discretion is advised. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. And if you are new to this podcast, welcome. We have another bonus episode today. Now, just earlier this week, we wrapped up our coverage of the 1980 murders of Rose Burkert, Roger Atkinson, William Kyle, and the 1970 murder of Jack McDonald. Now, that series took months to research and write and record and get out, but now we are done. And looking forward, I have the next 3 episodes scheduled and ready to go out. Next week, we are covering Ellen Greenberg's case and the recent ruling from the Philadelphia Chief Medical Examiner on her case being officially ruled a suicide once again. The week after that, we have another Iowa cold case, the unsolved 1997 murder of Connie Ruddy. And the week after that, we are going to be talking about Andrea Yates. She drowned her 5 children in 2001. But instead of focusing on the day she killed her kids, we are going to go over the years and months leading up to that event and talk about the many missed opportunities there were to get her help that she needed for her severe postpartum psychosis. But in today's bonus episode, I just have one update, and it's actually relating to a case I have covered here on the podcast before, and that is the 1979 death of 3-year-old Keara Coshow. Now, I will give you a quick synopsis of the case, but I will link to the actual episode in the show notes if you want to go back and listen. On July 12th, 1979, a fire broke out at the Hill Top Motel in Red Oak, Iowa. When first responders got to the scene, they contained the fire, which was located in the laundry room of the motel. But after the fire was contained, they recovered the body of 3-year-old Keara Coshow, who was pronounced dead at the scene. According to Keara Coshow, who worked at the motel and who was the stepmother of Keara, she had been cleaning rooms and watching Keara at the same time. Karen said at a certain point she walked to go get a key to a room she needed to clean and saw Keara playing by the laundry room door. When she returned, she said the door to the laundry room was closed and that Keara was not there. Karen said she went to the laundry room to grab towels she needed for the room she was about to clean, but when she opened the door, she was met with intense smoke, heat, and flames. She said she then ran to call the fire department. In the laundry room, which sustained extensive damage, next to Keara's body was an opened 1-gallon container of paint thinner. The lid was found on the floor a few inches from her body, and a pile of linens were beside the body. And the original investigation report says, quote, "A pile of linens that had been beside the body was picked up, and an odor similar to that of the product in the can was very noticeable in these linens." Now, investigators in 1979 ultimately ruled the fire as accidental, and Keara's death as accidental. The summary of the original 1979 investigation report says, quote, "Based on the information contained in this report, it is the opinion of this agent that Keara Coshow was playing in the laundry room with the can of paint thinner and either poured or spilled it on herself, the floor, and the pile of linens nearby. The fumes from this liquid ignited, probably by the open flame in the water heater, although there were other possible sources of ignition present. This agent can find no reason to believe her death to be other than accidental." Keara's death certificate listed her cause of death as, quote, "neurogenic shock from burns to the entire body," and lists the death as accidental. So, even at the time of the death, this was kind of a controversial ruling because it was known among investigators and the county medical examiner, and it's noted in the original 1979 investigation report that there were suspicions that Keara and at least one of her siblings were being abused by Karen, their stepmother. In the investigation report, it says, quote, "Dr. Redmond Smith, the county medical examiner, was present and related incidents of alleged child abuse that had been inflicted upon Keara and her sister, presumably by the mother. One of these incidents that Dr. Smith believed was suspicious was just months before the fire. Keara had suffered an eye injury, which was the result of, quote, her eyes coming in contact with a mixture of water and Drano. The details of this incident were not given at the time, but this incident left Keara nearly blind. So there were suspicions of the ruling because of the alleged child abuse. There were suspicions because she's 3 years old and nearly blind, but somehow got a gallon of paint thinner, opened it, dumped it everywhere, causing the room to explode. But even more suspicious, Keara's older sister, who was 5 years old at the time of the fire, said she saw Karen shake Keara so violently the day before the fire that it caused Keara to go limp. Additionally, Jody Ewing, the founder of IowaColdCases.org, and who was involved with the creation of the new Iowa Cold Cases unit, wrote on her summary of this case that Keara's autopsy report indicated she had suffered an acute spinal cord injury prior to the fire. And if Keara had a spinal cord injury leaving her immobile, she obviously would not have been able to dump the paint thinner everywhere. But I want to preface this. Obviously, this is a story being relayed by someone saying what they recall from when they were 5 years old. And this isn't to say that I don't believe them. I have spoken with this sibling before, but people's memories are often not accurate. Additionally, I haven't seen anywhere outside of Jody Ewing's reporting that Keara for sure had a spinal cord injury. And this is where things are unclear to me. I have not seen the autopsy report, so I can't verify this. But the death certificate does not mention a spinal cord injury, and the investigation report does not mention a spinal cord injury. On Jody Ewing's website, and in her write-up, she has a paragraph that states, quote, the fully burned body made it difficult for Dr. P.C. Ramon Jr. of Atlantic to come to satisfactory conclusions with an X-ray of Keara's body. The X-ray found no evidence of regular broken bones, but did find fractures in the spinal cord. Ramon also stated that the rib cage X-ray was not satisfactory to exclude the possibility of fracture. So that's what Jody Ewing's website says. The 1979 investigation report has similar language but says, quote, the X-ray found no evidence of broken bones, although the rib cage X-ray was not satisfactory to exclude the possibility of fracture. So the sentence Jody Ewing has in her paragraph stating, quote, but did find fractures in the spinal cord is not present in the 1979 investigation report that I have. Is that present in the autopsy report? Possibly, but I don't have access to that. Jody Ewing also says that the cause of death on the death certificate being, quote, neurogenic shock from burns to the entire body proves that Keara would have been immobile because based on her research, neurogenic shock, quote, refers to severe autonomic dysfunction and interruption of sympathetic nervous system control and acute spinal cord injury above the 6th thoracic vertebra. So based on her research, neurogenic shock is the result of a spinal cord injury, meaning Keara would have been immobile during the fire. And look, I am not anywhere close to being even a little bit knowledgeable in this, but my quick Googling shows me that, yes, spinal cord injury is the most likely cause of neurogenic shock. But I also saw research showing you can go into neurogenic shock from fires. An NIH article, which I'll link, says, in the vast majority of immediate fire deaths, the mechanism of death is inhalation of toxic gases, direct thermal injury, or neurogenic shock due to the redistribution of the body's blood volume produced by surface heat on the skin. This matches what the death certificate says when it's saying, quote, neurogenic shock from burns to the entire body. So there's this question about whether Keara had a spinal cord injury before the fire. Based on the suspicions that Keara and her sibling had been abused by Karen, and based on the siblings' recollection of Karen shaking Keara, I could definitely see this being the case. And I wish that the report would have put more weight into considering this. They say, though, that, quote, although there was a history of child abuse and or neglect involving Keara, this agent could find no reason to believe her death to be other than accidental. It also says in relation to abuse, it says, quote, "There may have been some neglect in the supervision of a nearly blind child and also violation of fire safety codes in storing flammable liquids in a laundry room, but there was no apparent evidence of criminal intent or neglect." So they took the child abuse suspicions into consideration, but ultimately ruled it to be accidental. And based on the wording of that last paragraph I just read, it doesn't sound like they believed there was enough to even charge Karen with some sort of like criminal child neglect. So it's ruled as accidental. In 2007, at the request of Keara's aunt, who has since passed away, the investigation was reopened and looked at again. And it was reopened because Keara's aunt suspected that Keara died at the hands of Karen because of the allegations of child abuse. In 2010, though, based on records I received from a request I put in 2024 to the Iowa Department of Public Safety and the Division of Criminal Investigation, they closed the case again in 2010 with the same conclusion. It was an accident. The records I received specifically say, quote, "In April of 2007, the DCI was contacted and asked to reopen the case due to suspicions by the victim's aunt. The case was reopened and an investigation was completed. The information received from the investigation was reviewed with the county attorney and the findings were consistent with the original ruling as accidental. I respectfully request that this case be closed." So I bring up a couple things in going through this case, right? I do think this case is suspicious. There's obviously the allegations of child abuse. There's the recollection from Keara's sibling that Karen had shaken Keara so violently the day before that her body was limp. And there are people like Jody Ewing who suspect that she had a spinal cord injury, likely from the belief that Karen had shaken her the day before, that would have left her immobile. I am also bringing this up that they ruled the case as accidental. They ruled the fire as being accidental in 1979. They ruled her death to be accidental in 1979. And even when they reopened it in 2007 to reinvestigate it, they came to the same conclusions. Do I agree with those conclusions? No, not really, just based on the limited information that I have. But that's kind of where we're at. So fast forward to 2025, and the Iowa Cold Case Unit in Attorney General's office has released a deck of Iowa cold case cards, which is great. I love this. But I was scrolling through, and what do I see? A card with Keara Coshow's face. And it says, quote, "Unsolved homicide." It says, quote, "July 12th, 1979. 3-year-old Coshow died at the Hill Top Motel in Red Oak. Coshow was in the motel laundry room when it exploded. The fire was ruled arson. An autopsy revealed the child had an acute spinal cord injury prior to the fire." So, hold up. This case, based on records I received in just 2024, says this case was ruled accidental, as, the last time being in 2010. But now it's listed as an unsolved homicide on the deck of cards. And it does say that she suffered an acute spinal cord injury, which they say was based on the autopsy report. And again, I would love to see this for myself. But what it also says was, quote, "The fire was ruled arson." It was absolutely not ruled arson in any of the records I saw or in any of the reporting. So I'm left with a few questions. One, was there a major change in this case? Because that would be fantastic news, I think, if it had been reopened and was now considered to be suspicious. Because to me, there are definitely things about this case that are quite suspicious. That's why in my original episode on this, I labeled it a suspicious death. Or was this an error? And I am more inclined to believe that they essentially created this card based on Jody Ewing's write-up from IowaColdCases.org. And I want to put up front that Jody Ewing has done incredible work on this website. I use it extensively. It is the only place where the hundreds upon hundreds of unsolved Iowa cases are consolidated. But she does insert her personal opinion in a lot of these write-ups, which is her right to do so, right? It's her blog. She is not in law enforcement. She is a journalist. She was involved in the creation of the Iowa Cold Cases Unit, at least a little bit. She was at least present at the press conference where they announced its creation. But she definitely puts her personal view on some of these stories that she writes up. She has Keara's case listed as a homicide when the official ruling has been, since 1979 and at least 2010, accidental. She also states in her write-up, and this, look again, I'm not an expert, she states in her write-up that it is a fact that Keara had an acute spinal cord injury. I have not seen the autopsy report, but she's basing that also on her interpretation of the death certificate saying the cause of death was neurogenic shock from burns to the entire body. She listed that as a fact that you can only get neurogenic shock from spinal cord injuries. And based on my looking into it, you can also get neurogenic shock from a fire. So did the newly created Iowa Cold Case Unit within the Attorney General's office just copy her website without checking what the state agencies actually had her case listed as? This is something that's definitely concerning to me. And so I did email them to get clarification, and I will provide an update if they get back to me. But I want to know what you think about this. Maybe I am just thinking negatively and assuming they just copied the Iowa Cold Cases website, and I am always happy to be proven wrong. I hope there was some break in the case and it was reclassified, because from what I understand, Keara's father and stepmother are still alive, and if her stepmother is responsible, she needs to be held accountable. If you also are an expert in spinal cord injuries and or neurogenic shock, send me an email, right? Jody Ewing's website paints it as a fact that you can only experience this type of shock if you had a spinal cord injury, but I don't believe that to be the case, right? But again, there's honestly probably nothing I know less about than spinal cords, okay? I mean, that's an exaggeration, but you know what I mean. And so I was just really surprised to see the case listed as this in the deck of cards, because one, most people have still been under the assumption that this case was an accident. I mean, or at least classified as an accident. There have been petitions over the years to get this case reopened. Keara's sister still believes that this case is classified as an accident, so it would be big news if they did do a review and they reclassified it to be a homicide. Because there are very credible, I think, suspicions on Keara's stepmother and those allegations of child abuse that we went over. So I just think it's kind of concerning, one, that like if they reclassified this, did they just not tell anybody? Are they not like putting out feelers to say, hey, we heard you all, we did a reinvestigation, this case is now considered to be a homicide and we need tips and all of that? Or are they just not checking their information and they just took Jody Ewing's website at its word? And again, I'm not trying to bash on Jody Ewing. I love her website. I use it extensively. Again, she has been a journalist who has covered cold cases for years in Iowa. But you know what I mean? Like, what other errors could there be in this deck of cards in these cold cases? It just makes me question the due diligence that they're putting behind these new efforts. But again, I will let you know if I get any updates from the emails that I sent them. Let me know what you think in the comments on social media. Send me an email. And that's all I have for today. I just wanted to provide you that update because this is a case we have covered before. And I want to thank you so much for listening, and we will see you next time. Thank you for listening to this episode of Cardinal Crimes. If you enjoyed it, please consider subscribing, giving us a 5-star review wherever you get your podcast, and sharing this episode with others. You can find us on TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram with the handle @CardinalCrimes, and you can send us any case suggestions, questions, or topics you would like covered there or to our email, cardinalcrimes@gmail.com. Until next time, friends, take care of each other and take care of yourself. If you've ever thought about starting your own podcast, there's no better place to begin than with Buzzsprout. It's the platform I use, and it makes publishing, promoting, and tracking your episodes so easy, even if you're not tech savvy. Plus, they help you get listed in all the major directories like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and more. And here's the best part. When you sign up for a paid Buzzsprout plan using my affiliate link, you'll get $20 off, and you'll be supporting the show at the same time. Just head to the description of this episode to find the affiliate link. Now, let's get back to the episode.